When the Rose Kennedy Greenway replaced the old central artery, the goal was to convert a space for travel into something more like a destination or even a neighborhood park. Along the road to pandemic recovery this summer, the Greenway Conservancy is trying to get us back on that track with some new programming. This also takes place under a new executive director who previously worked for the city of Boston as chief of environment, energy, and open space, and before that with arts, tourism, and special events. We'd like to welcome Christopher Cook. Thank you very much for being with us, Chris.
Chris, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be back. Thank you.
Chris, I want to have you tell me what's been happening with the Greenway over the past year and a half, because we saw this sort of increasing engagement before the pandemic hit, and then things changed. So what has been happening since that point?
Well, what's been really fascinating, Chris, is throughout the pandemic, the Greenway took on one of the responsibilities that a lot of these legacy parks in the city already have, whether it's the Olmsted and Elliott designs through the MDC and the DCR parks, as well as the Boston Park system, where residents and visitors would use it for passive recreation to sort of have that mental health break in the city. The Greenway really became that for a lot of Seaport and Financial District residents, and certainly Chinatown residents, one of our most socially vulnerable populations. This was their open space to get some fresh air during this pandemic. And now what we're starting to see with the return to work is this new appreciation for the park, both as this amazing civic programmatic place, but also this wonderful place that's a great open space to provide that recreation.
Well, one of the things that always intrigued me about the Greenway is the difference between space, which is what the central artery was, and a place where you hang out, you spend some time, you really engage in your surroundings. So how do you promote that latter thing?
Well, I think it's a really important point that you just made. I mean, the transformation of something that divided neighborhoods into something that actually connects neighborhoods and connect people, like that's what's really important about the Greenway. And one of the ways to build on that is through programming. And that's why we're excited about the enhanced programming that we're doing with the Business Improvement District. It's not just about these beautiful spaces that you can come and view and have a quiet moment in, but it's also about programming it, filling it with community arts programs, filling it with visual art, and making sure that people are having an exciting time. That really builds community and it contributes to our overall recovery.
Just draw the picture for me, because a lot of this involves having somebody perform music, maybe some dance, and people are just walking along the Greenway. They're not making any plans. And as soon as they hear this or they see it, it sort of stops them in their tracks. What builds from that?
Well, that's great. It's a great question, Chris. I mean, this is really, and I have to give tons of credit here to the businesses, especially the businesses and the leadership of the Business Improvement District for the Greenway, which is run by A Better City and Rick Domino. They really had this idea that as people are starting to come back to work, as they're starting to get reintroduced to Boston, there should be a specialness to welcome them. And so this Rediscover the Greenway series is going to do just what you said. As you are on your lunch break, you're going to bump into performances, whether it's curated by Aphrodisiacity in Dewey Square, or the Boston Music Project over at the Rings Fountain, or in Chinatown, we'll have youth play sessions as well as other performers. As you experience the park, as you return to work, you'll also have these beautiful moments where you're getting exposed to performing arts, and you really feel a sense of renewal and celebration that we're all returning back to the city that we love.
What about another mission that people, I think, have had in mind for this space as well? And it's not just for tourists, office workers, or people who live in pricey housing around the block. But what about people from other parts of the city, getting different kinds of people there? Is that working?
Yeah, it is, Chris. And this is a real intention with both the Business Improvement District as well as the Rose Kennedy Greenway Conservancy. Listen, this is a Commonwealth asset. If you remember the Big Dig, we all paid for the Big Dig. So everyone in the Commonwealth should feel welcome in this park. And one of the ways we can do that is through the programming itself, making sure that we have culturally resonant programming and making sure that we are connecting people to the park. And so whether that's being an advocate for the physical connections, things like the South Bay Harbor Trail or the North Washington Bridge, or inviting people with this type of programming, that's really important to us. We want to make sure that everyone's welcome in the Greenway. With all of that being said, we do have a special commitment to certain neighborhoods along the Greenway, whether it's the West End and the North End, and especially Chinatown, who's suffered so much throughout the pandemic. We have a special relationship with them. And so one of the programs that we're offering, that we're sponsoring with the Business Improvement District, is working with Chinatown Main Streets. We're having weekly lion dances that hopefully will bring tourism back to some of those Chinatown businesses that have been hit so hard. So it's not just about the tourists, but we do got to pay attention that that drives economic development.
What about the function of a neighborhood park? Because there are more people who live on either side of this greenway now. They need parks as much as anybody else. How has that been working?
What's fascinating is as downtown and the surrounding areas of downtown, whether it's the seaport and the financial district, becomes more dense, the Greenway just gets more and more important. And so the Business Improvement District has really been focused on making capital improvements to make sure that we can actually keep up with the pace of use in the park. But in addition to that, how important this park becomes to people's everyday lives, that informs the design as well. So for instance, in the North End, we have this amazing new pollinator garden that people can actually walk through and experience something that normally you'd have to drive outside of the city to have an experience with monarchs flying all around you. But we do it right at parcel 12. It's pretty incredible.
One of the things I've noticed over the years of the Greenway, there are some parts that are pretty well populated much of a given day, but at the same time, there are other parts that can be desolate at certain times. Take Dewey Square, early in the morning, lots of food trucks maybe, or lunchtime, but in the evening, not much going on. But you've been trying to change that with movies. How has that been working?
Well, we're about to launch that, and so we'll let you know after we do it. But I think there's a huge opportunity for us here. As we head into the season, we're going to be partnering with the Mayor's Office of Tourism, Sports, and Entertainment to bring those movies to Dewey Square. We think it's a huge opportunity, not just for the after work crowd, but for folks who live in downtown and want to have a unique urban experience. What's the point of having one of the most beautiful dynamic spaces in all of the city of Boston with the gorgeous Dewey Square mural behind you if it's not activated more? So to have that big open space activated with movies and with concerts and with music, we think that's a huge opportunity for us.
I know you talked about how good it is to get people back to the Greenway for businesses on either side, but what about some of these performers? I imagine they've been hurting lately as well.
Well, that was a big intention around this too. With performers not being able to have sources of revenue for, in some cases, 18 months, we took this as a huge opportunity. Not only would we be welcoming people back to the financial district, back to downtown, back to the waterfront, who are going into the office buildings, but could we use this as an opportunity to actually support some of these community arts organizations? Many of these community arts organizations are run by women or minority-owned businesses. And so we thought this was very, very important to partner with these different groups and support a really diverse cast of performers, making sure that they're participating in this recovery fully. It's a great opportunity for us, and it shows really strong leadership from the local businesses.
One of the things that gets lost in all of our talk about activities here is the assets of the Greenway, just as a landscape, is eye candy. You have tours that sort of get people to focus on that?
We do, and there's so many aspects of it, and so it's hard to fit it all in. But between the public art, but then just as you said, the landscape architecture. I mean, the fact that almost every parcel was designed by a different landscape architect to show off a different aspect of what beautiful design can do for our city. Whether it's the iconic Rings fountain or the incredible fountain down at Chin Park, there's this real diversity of space. I mean, the Greenway is only 1.5 miles long, but you have very unique experiences in there. You can get lost in trees, you can walk through a pollinator garden, you can walk through a fountain, and you can also enjoy a performance. That's packing a lot into 1.5 miles.
Finally, we should mention some more organized activity at the Armenian Heritage Park. There was an event earlier this week. What was that like?
Well, it was wonderful. The friends of the Armenian Heritage Foundation welcomed me to the park, and whenever they welcome anyone new, they always have a tea out there. Of course, we had iced tea because it was so hot this week. But what's amazing about that space is the sanctity of it. This beautiful memorial to the Armenian genocide that honors that community, but also shows that it can change. If you haven't experienced this piece of public art, the design is absolutely stunning. It looks like it's fixed. It looks like it's permanent, but every year it actually changes its shape. And by doing that, it reminds us that we as humanity can also change. And it's a really important reminder, especially in a tough year like this, that we always have the ability to get better. We always have the ability to change. So we're incredibly grateful to that group for helping us maintain that space. And we're very grateful for all the programming they're doing there. And it's also a wonderful place for kids to visit.
One other thing about the Greenway, and this is somewhat in common with the High Line in New York City. It's not just a place itself, it's a perch where you see the rest of the city. How do you feel when you look out at what surrounds the Greenway?
Oh, it's just an incredible opportunity. The way that it connects different elements of our history and our shared experience in an urban landscape right now. When you start to think about this park helps knit together, the Boston Common and the Freedom Trail and the North End. It's an incredible source of pride for us. It's also a statement of values. Here in Boston, we value connectivity, parts, the democracy of open space over highways. And I think that's really important. It sends a very strong message that we took arguably the most valuable real estate in the city, and we made sure that it was open space for the people. I think that sends a strong message to the city of Boston.
Finally, I know you get so much happening, people need to follow it on social media. So where should they be looking?
Oh, by far, the easiest thing to do is either go onto our Facebook page, the Greenway Conservancy Facebook page, or the website itself. Go to the Rose Kennedy Greenway Conservancy website, click right on the calendar, and any day of the week that you want to have a unique activity, we'll be having one as part of this series. We want people to rediscover the Greenway, but in doing that, they'll also rediscover Boston.
Well, thank you very much for walking us through it.
I appreciate it, Chris. Thank you, sir.
That was Chris Cook from the Rose Kennedy Greenway Conservancy. We'll have more news in just a moment.